Hello friends, this is Worm, unless you ask the Enclave, and today we are back with our third installment and the final arc installment of What Can We Do? And today we're talking about hunters, arc hunters, of course specifically in PvP, and that's very important to note because I say that Titan is the best close quarter combat class in the game, blah blah blah, stuff like that, and everybody always seems to say, well, what about Arc Hunter? What about Arc Hunter? Arc Hunter is definitely the best melee class in the game, but it is the best in the scope of PvE. In PvP, Titan still takes the cake, in my opinion, for the best melee-based subclass, right? So we're going to be talking about it specifically in PvP. So yeah, let's go. Arc Hunter in PvP. What is it all about? And this is one I can't. I don't want to say I don't know, but like it feels like it fits a bunch of different roles, right? Like obviously Arc Titan, we talked about, fits a close quarter combat machine, right? Arc Warlock definitely fits this, same thing, kind of close quarter, but also it can kind of fit a supportive role through Arc Souls and, lots of chain lightning, stuff like that. Hunter, though, I would say fits kind of a mixture of a fast-paced, close range / melee build, right? You've got things like Combination Blow, Tempest Strike. These are very, very good. Disorienting Blow, a melee. These are all very good things, but I don't think that they are as strong as the other two classes. Now, I know somebody will disagree. That's fine. You can disagree with that. But Hunter, of the three arc classes, I think, or of the three classes in terms of arc, Hunter's the weakest, right? And I want to talk about what I think Hunter needs to actually improve it. And this is going to be the first kind of the first video in this little mini series we're doing where I don't really have any nerfs for this. I think I have only buffs that I think should happen to Arc Hunter to make it just a little bit better in the Crucible, to bring it up a little bit more in terms of what it does, right? So what is the first one here? First of all, I want to take a step back and look at knockouts on Arc Titan, right? Knockout gives you extended melee lunge. Arc Hunter, to me, it feels like a budget Arc Titan, right? You get lethal current, which is pretty cool. Sorry, that play in the background was really cool. Also, for these videos, I'm using Liar's Handshake, just in case you're wondering why I'm making silly plays. I'm using Liar's Handshake and just trying to get one shot melees, right? But Hunter has always to me felt like a budget Arc Titan, right? Because, it's one of its entire aspects, which is, I believe it's flow state, right? Or I can't remember. One of its two aspects is it's lethal current, right? You dodge, you get increased melee lunge range for 10 seconds, and then you jolt target, stuff like that. Like, don't get me wrong, that is a really cool aspect, but Titan has always done it better. Now, recently, and I say recently, but relatively recently, Titan, not Hunter, Titan got a nerf to knockout. So now it's not 6.5 meters, now it's 5.5 meters. Hunter's range with lethal current is still 6.5 meters, but to me, it still doesn't feel like enough, right? Because in order for it to work to your effect, to work effectively, right, you have to dodge close to an enemy, then you have to go in for a melee. Now, yes, there is flow state. I think it's the one where it gives you increased damage when you dodge, if you're amplified, blah, blah, blah. That's a lot of hoops to jump through. I think that, sorry, see, that's what I'm talking about. That play you just saw right there. Rewind the video and watch it again. But, with Arc Hunter, you have to dodge to activate lethal current. It stays active for 10 seconds, 10 or 11 seconds. I think it's 10 seconds. So 10 seconds, then it goes away. In that 10 seconds, you can get, more melee range, but it's only 6.5 meters. I think the first change that I would make to that whole, lethal current, I would say extend the melee lunge even further, right? And there is somewhat of a trade-off here. Unlike knockout was literally just for free. Like all you had to do was damage one enemy and you could punch 6.5 meters for as long as your heart desired, right? Lethal current is not the same. Like lethal current is gone once you activate that first melee. And that's what I would have said about Arc Titan back in the day. Like Arc Titan, once you get a kill, once you clean up an enemy, knockout should deactivate. But they changed it, did their whole other thing. We're not talking about Arc Titan. We're talking about Arc Hunter here. But Arc Hunter, as soon as you melee, you lose lethal current because it consumes your melee when you actually, when you throw out that punch, right? So I say extend the melee range, right? It's not like it has constant uptime. Like even in the build here, like I'm using the fragment that allows you to recharge your class ability faster for sprinting. You could use hypothetically, what is it? Frosties to get that cooldown even faster, but still there is a cooldown that you have on it because it's tied into your dodge ability. And even at max mobility, which I always play Hunter at max mobility, you are looking at a 14, if I'm not mistaken, 14-second dodge, or if you're using Gambler's Dodge, which you really should be using, I think it's an 18-second cooldown, which is a very, very long cooldown, right? Like that's longer than something like, you know, obviously much longer than Knockout. Like there's a lot, that's a long cooldown. So I think that the trade-off for that longer cooldown between when you can actually activate Lethal Currents, there should be greater rewards from it, right? Like the less amount of uptime you have, the stronger an ability should be, right? And the more uptime you have, the weaker it should be. You know, Knockout has constant uptime, right? Like as soon as Knockout runs out, you can immediately reproc Knockout through a melee or through whatever it is, you know? And so you can't do that with Lethal Current. So I think that Lethal Current is increasing it. I would almost say, like in a test environment, test it to see what 7.5 meters is. I mean, allow hunters to absolutely sling themselves forward, right? And I know that a lot of people would be, oh, that's frustrating, that's BS, blah, blah, blah. And here's the thing, like, yes, that's true. I know that players would be upset when it happens, but again, we're looking at the trade-off here. That cooldown for Lethal Current slash, you know, the dodge ability, stuff like that. And of course, you can't one-hit kill with a melee unless you get combination blow going. And in combination blow, like, you know, it's very difficult to get to 3 stacks of combination blow. So I think that once you get to that, you should become an absolute melee monster, right? In the Crucible, 9 PvE. In the Crucible, you know, 7.5 meter lunge range, one-shot melees. That would be insanely good and insanely fun. But the setup to get to that point would be very, very difficult. You got to stay alive. You've got to get kills within 20 seconds of one another. That means you got to take time to heal and stuff like that. And yeah, I know the melees can heal, you know, can give you a big chunk of health. But, you know, I think that would be the first change that I would make is increasing the melee lunge you have when Lethal Current is active. Because right now, like 6.5 meters, it is still very, very long. But again, that uptime is very low. And as soon as you use it one time, as soon as you land one melee, whether they're at a meter or 5.5 meters, it's gone, right? So it's very low uptime. I think the melee lunge range should be higher. Of course, tell me what you think. But the next thing that I would do is actually specifically in regards to Tempest Strike. Now, Tempest Strike, this is one I've only played with it a few times, but the reason I don't play with it is because the actual cooldown timer on it is huge. It is there's a massive cooldown timer. And yes, like I'm aware you can pair it with Gambler's Dodge to get it back instantly, but I think that the only thing I'd really do is change the cooldown on Tempest Strike to, like, you know, from, I think it's 3 minutes and 23 seconds at its base cooldown. Change it to like a minute and well, maybe like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes as its base cooldown. Like shave off a minute from that timer because it is entirely too long. And like I said, like, yes, I know somebody say, well, Gambler Dodge, you can get it back instantly, blah, blah, blah. You can do that already. I don't see an issue with reducing the cooldown so that you can use it more often when you don't have your Gambler's Dodge up, right? And like that would be the other change I'd make, because Tempest Strike is not a banger of a melee. Like I don't think in my history of playing Destiny 2 since Arc 3.0, I don't think I've ever been killed by Tempest Strike, right? And when I say that, obviously I don't literally mean I've never been killed by it. It means I've been killed by it so few times I don't remember any off the top of my head. So Tempest Strike, you know, it could use a shorter cooldown. In terms of the damage, I don't think it needs a damage tuning because it does hit really hard. I think it's like 130 damage and it jolts. You know, it jolts you if you get hit by it. So I definitely think that you want to be careful with increasing damage. Like we don't want a one-shot melee, right? We talked about that with, you know, Arc Warlock yesterday, the ability to, you know, kind of one-shot. And yeah, it's different, you know, certain scenarios and stuff, but we don't want one-shot melees. I think those are unhealthy for the game unless you are building heavily into it. If there was a, you know, a Hunter exotic that allows you to one-shot melee, or, you know, the exotic we're using here, I forget the name of it already, Liar's Handshake, that allows you to one-hit melee, but, you know, you're sacrificing something in your exotic slots to have that ability you know, to one shot. So I think just reducing the cooldown on Tempest Strike would be a really solid change for Arc Hunter. I mean, Arc Hunter, again, it's not bad in the Crucible, but I think of the 3 Arc classes, Hunter is the weakest Arc subclass, and that's why I think that Hunter needs the you know, the buff that we've talked about. But I don't know, I can't really think of anything else, because again, like, power creeping is real. You know, like I said, if we increase Tempest Strike's damage, that would be pushing into territory that is really close to one-shot melees, very uncomfortable point to be at. You know, if we increase, you know, if we did certain things too much in one direction, and I don't know, maybe 7.5 meters is way too far. I don't know, this is just kind of my idea. I think that increasing the melee lunge range is, you know, something that should happen. Or actually, I'm going to go back on that. Instead of the melee lunge range increasing, have it, when Lethal Current is active, make you deal, you know, allow the hunter to deal more damage, okay? And not enough to one shot, obviously not enough to one shot, but when Lethal Current is active, you get, like, you know, maybe a 30% damage increase on top of it. So now instead of doing 100 damage, you deal 130. And then if you have disorienting or combination blow as your melee ability, you know, then combination blow will allow you to, you know, get even higher up there in terms of damage, but still not one shot unless you get stacks of combination blow going. Like stacks of combination blow is a different story, because you have to build into it, you know. And yes, I know you can one-shot melee in the Crucible if you get ×3 stacks of combination blow, but the reality is, how often are we getting to that point? Because it's very difficult to climb through 3 stacks, right? You can't die. You have to take minimal damage. Like, there's a lot of things that have to be done in order for a player to reach 3 stacks of combination blow. But yeah, those are my ideas. All, you know, in terms of Arc Hunter, I think the Arc Hunter is strictly in need of some buffs for the Crucible, just to bring it up a little bit more in line, you know, so that it's more played. You know, I think that currently the most played Hunter subclass, probably Golden Gun. I don't have the data today. I don't have it pulled up, sorry. But I would say that either Strand or Golden Gun Hunter are the 2 most played subclasses. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Arc Hunter. Tell me your thoughts. What do you think of my thoughts? You know, let me know down in the comments below. Do you like my ideas? Do you not like my ideas? I know that a lot of y'all have expressed sentiment that seems to me to be very class biased, right? Like, oh, like Warlock doesn't need a nerf buff. Like, remember, look at this from an unbiased perspective. Like, if you are challenging a Hunter or a Warlock or blah, blah, blah in the Crucible, how would you feel about these changes being, you know, being present, right? Obviously it wouldn't feel good to get killed by it from that far. But again, if you're playing as a Hunter, think about it from that perspective. Like, the build you have to do into it, you know, you have to dodge, you know, you have to have 10-second energy, you know, then your dodge has to come off cooldown, blah, 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 all that stuff. Anyways, yeah, sorry, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Of course, if you like the video, drop a like. It helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content. Yeah, that's it for me. Do me a favor, watch the videos you see on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you like them, and I will see y'all in the next one.